All right, good morning. This is Chris Guyman, the Time Freedom Lawyer. I am super excited to be talking to you today about client communication. So, as everyone knows, this is probably my biggest, this is one of the biggest things that we see people talk about, right? It's one of the biggest complaints we have with the Bar Association in all 50 states. It's one of the things that I see the most people struggling with to manage in their firm. This is also one of the areas of practice, surprisingly enough, that if you can master, you can improve your cash flow and your profitability faster than almost anything else. So, to give a little background of why I'm so passionate about this, right? Like when I first started my practice, and I like to tell this story because it helps people understand like I'm not someone special. Like I don't have some special superpowers on that's made me be effective and efficient and make tons of money. Like I'm a pretty average guy, right? My first year in practice, I grossed 78,000 in gross revenue, and I took home 17 of it. So I barely made over minimum wage. It was after the end of that first year that I was like, man, I either need to figure out how to run a business, or I need to get a job. So I spent the next 4 years studying how to run a business, and it took me a total of 5 years, so 4 years after the first, to hit my first $500,000 a year. So, and that was $10,000 a week. So you see me talk you see me talk a lot about how to generate $10,000 a week. The reason I did that is because that's what it took me 5 years to do. And it also, that's when I finally felt like I had enough cash flow and flexibility to do what I love. That's where I started having, that was like the foundation of when I had enough time, money, and energy to go do the things that I loved, whether it was go on vacation, we paid off our house, we did a lot of things there. We've obviously grown our businesses since then as well, but that was the foundation for me. And this is, communication is one of the biggest things when it comes to how I did that. So I also want to tell another story here to get people excited because recently I had a mastermind event, and so this is one of our premium programs, and one of the mastermind members there, so he's already running a 7-figure business and he's doing really well. And he came to me and he's like, Chris, there is no way I can delegate my email. There's just no way, right? Client communication is too important. I'm going to get disbarred. I'm going to get bar complaints, and no one can do it. And he was spending upwards of 4 hours a day on his email. And I'd love to hear, for those who are willing to admit it, how many hours a day do you think you spend on your email? One, do you know? And two, I'm curious what you think that is if you don't know. Because most people are incredibly surprised by how many hours they spend. He was not aware of how many hours he was spending on his email until we dove into it during this mastermind. And as we dove in, we realized he was doing about 4 hours a day on his email. And that's 4 hours a day that he could be doing other income producing activities, right? And so even if you bill by the hour and you can bill for your emails, I want you to take a second and ask yourself, what's one of the biggest complaints your clients give you about your invoices? And I'm guessing one of the number one most frequent complaints you get is, why was it X dollars for this email, right? Why did I have to pay you $400 to have a phone call with opposing counsel, right? I found back when I billed by the hour, my number one client complaint about my invoices was regarding communication. I had one client, he called our office every single day and sent me at least one email every single day. And at the end of the month, he had taken up about $2,500 worth of our time. Now I felt bad about that and I discounted it to $1,500 because I didn't want to charge him $2,500 for emails and phone calls, right? I felt bad about that. And he was furious. He's like, you mean I had to pay you $1,500 just for emails? Obviously my response was, no, you paid $1,500 for $2,500 of my time. If you don't want to spend that much, stop taking up all my time, right? But communication's a big deal. It's a hard way to get paid. It's a hard thing to do. And even the people who are admitting here in the chat, they're saying, 1 to 1.5 hours. and that may even be underestimating it. One of the other things, and I know I'm talking a lot about email. Email is not the only way we communicate. I'm just using this as an example of why client communication is so important. But part of client communication is also how and when you respond, right? So whether it's an email or a phone call or a client portal message or whatever, a drop by at the office, right? Every time a client asks for something, they have an expectation of when they're going to get a response. And depending on how you do it, you can be significantly interrupted, right? If you're in the middle of drafting a motion and a client calls and you take that call may only be 5 minutes long, but how much productivity did you lose by switching your brain from the motion to them, right? And it takes you like a minute or two to kind of remember what's going on in their case and stuff. And that's just normal because it takes us a little bit of time for our brains to transition. Then you answer their questions, then you wrap up their phone call, and now you got to go back to your motion. You're like, where was I again? And you have to like read through, and it takes a couple minutes to get back into it. A lot of science has shown that when you switch tasks like that, it can take up to 20 minutes for your brain to get caught back up to speed at the same speed. And you'll notice that, right? When you draft a motion, at the beginning, it's kind of slow. It takes you a little while. And then you kind of get in the groove, right? And then like the first 30 minutes, you may do like 2 paragraphs. And the next 30 minutes, you'll do 10 paragraphs. Because you're just in the groove, you're feeling it, you've come up with your argument. Now you're just trying to put what's in your brain on paper. Instead of coming up with it, you're just putting it on paper. But when you get interrupted, everything that's in your brain disappears. It's like a copy and paste function, right? You can copy and you can paste things, but if you copy something else, you lose what you copied initially. You have to have a really good system for client communication. And that system has got to be about more than just you. So some people, and I'm sure at some point, someone's going to put in the comments that their clients love having their cell phone number. Anybody here, are you willing to admit that? Your clients have your cell phone number and they love it. They love being able to call you whenever they want to. Because one of the biggest objections and biggest hurdles I ever get when I start helping people create systems is people love the cell phone. They can't give away that phone. I had a client, it was about a year or two ago now, but she was the same way. She live and die by, my clients will have my cell phone number. They can and will call me whenever they want. Like, I will not give that up no matter what. She fought with me about this. Almost every coaching call we had, we'd be talking about communication systems of some sort, and she'd be like, well, my clients love having my cell phone number. And then she had a long-term client, someone she'd worked with for a long time. And they owed her a little bit of money, but it was common where they'd get ahead, they'd get behind on payments, but they always made payments, they always caught up eventually. And she'd done a lot of work with them for a lot of years. And they came to her one day and said, hey, I'm going to switch attorneys. I've got a new attorney to help me. And she was a criminal defense attorney, right? So she'd helped them with misdemeanors and DUIs and some of those basic things like that, right? And now that he had a big felony that was coming down the pipeline. And he was like, I've really enjoyed working with you for a lot of years. Like, I consider you a good friend. But now that I have this felony coming, I kind of need someone who's going to be able to handle a complex case like that. And so I've switched to so-and-so. He wasn't asking, he'd already switched. Please transfer my file to so-and-so. And that's when it finally hit her. Like, yeah, people love having your cell phone, right? I have my friend's cell phone number. But I don't have my doctor's cell phone number, right? I don't have professional's cell phone number. I have my friend's cell phone number. And I love hanging out with my friends. I love talking to my friends. But I'll tell you, my best friend from high school has never sent me a referral to my law firm. Which is crazy, right? He had one of his coworkers, who I became friends with through him. So they work in the same company. They know all the same people. That coworker would send me a referral about once a month from that company. There was enough people in that company that someone was getting divorced every month, right? And he was sending me someone almost every single month. But my best friend that I've known since I was 3 years old has never sent me a referral. Why? Because your friends don't think of you as professionals. Your friends think of you as the crazy kid who drove through fast to the canyon, and we would go camping and drink a 12-pack of Mountain Dew every weekend and play Halo together and have fun, right? Your friends don't think of you as professionals. and you're trying to run a professional law firm. So I really want you to spend some time, right? We're going to go through the how, but I want you to, if nothing else, the only thing you get out of this meeting today is one thing. I want it to be that you need to create a system to communicate with your clients. And it's got to be about more than just you. You can be a part of that system. You should be a part of that system, especially if you're the only lawyer in the law firm. Then you have to be a part of that system when it comes to legal advice. But you have to create a system. This is going to get your clients better answers, and it's going to make you look more professional, which is going to get you better clients. So not only are you going to spend less time, your clients are going to get better results, and you are going to get better clients. Better clients mean they're easier to work with and they pay more, right? So that's the one thing today. If you get one thing out of this, create a system for how to communicate with people. So as Amy mentioned, one of the best ways of doing this, and the first secret I would cover for this, the first system that I would suggest creating is email. Okay, as I've already said, email is the #1 time consumer for attorneys. It is the lowest return on investment activity that an attorney does. Most of your email that's coming in doesn't require an attorney's response. So the question and answer that you need to start thinking about is, how do I, as an attorney, make sure that when an email does need legal advice, it does need an attorney, it gets to me, and all of the other emails do not, right? So, the court clerk sends an email asking to schedule a hearing. You don't need to be the one doing that, right? In fact, you shouldn't be the one. You should have a system on how to schedule, and the person who's in charge of that should do that. And that way, when they're scheduling the hearing, they can make sure that it fits with your overall master schedule. So that's going to go to them, right? A client sends an email and asks, when's my court hearing? You don't need to be the one who answers that, right? Your team can look up that. What if a client sends an email and says, we had this question just yesterday, or 2 days ago. In our decree, it says that he has to give 30 days notice for his parent time. He didn't give me 30 days notice. Do I have to pay for the half of the transportation? So in this situation, they live across the country, right? So he's supposed to give 30 days notice. If he does, then he pays for the child to go out to him, and she pays for the child to come back, is how they've got it set up. Or effectively, they buy a round trip ticket and split it, right? So she asked that question. Who can answer that? I want you to think about it for a second, right? Who can answer that question? My decree says 30 days notice. You didn't give 30 days notice. Do I have to pay? This is not a hypothetical. I want you to comment what you think the answer is. Who can answer that and how? So obviously, if someone hops on that call and says, hey, you should do X, I think that's clear as day legal advice, right? Only an attorney can give that. Legal advice, you would need an attorney to do that. But I want to challenge you a little bit to ask, do you have to give legal advice in that situation? Because we have it set up where our team, I use ChatGPT for this, but there's multiple different platforms and things you can do, where we have a closed ChatGPT workspace, so the data is not used to train its models. It actually says it at the very bottom of the page. OpenAI does not use Conflict Resolution Center's workspace data to train its models, so we've paid extra for that. And they plugged the decree into there, plugged the person's question, and asked ChatGPT with a custom prompt that we have built to answer the question. And ChatGPT in this situation, how we've got it set up, is it's only allowed to provide an answer from the decree. So it said, paragraph 23 of your decree states that he must provide 30 days notice for his parent time. If he doesn't, he forfeits the parent time. So they didn't need legal advice, right? And to go on from that, what ChatGPT then said is, based on that, he is not entitled to parent time. However, if the parties agree otherwise, which this says it in the decree as well, and it was quoting the decree on this. If the parties agree otherwise, they can do whatever they'd like to do. So, if you want to send her, you can. That was obviously a daughter. But you would not be compelled to send her, and you're definitely not compelled to pay. So, it's also set up, how we got this specifically is, so the answer that we ended up giving the client was, our attorney's not currently available. And we weren't. We were in hearings and mediation. But our AI database has reviewed your decree, and this is what it said. Paragraph 23 says this. This is the penalty clause. Amy asked, is there a penalty clause? And the answer is yes, right? The client just didn't see the penalty clause. That was the issue. This is what the penalty clause says. And therefore, you don't have to send them. If you want to agree to something else, you can. And you would then have to agree on the terms, whether that's paying or not. And then it says right there, so we told them, attorney's not available. Our AI database has reviewed your decree. This is what the AI database says. And I think we even have a little disclaimer, like, AI databases cannot give legal advice and can get things wrong, but it's a pretty good summary of what it's a pretty good legal information, right? Does that answer your question? Do you still want to talk to, do you still need to talk to an attorney, or is this good enough for you? And in this case, the client said, oh, I forgot about the penalty clause in paragraph, I think the 23 was where it said the 30-day notice, and paragraph 24 is what it said if they don't follow through. She's like, oh, I didn't even think about paragraph 24. Nope, that answers my question, I'm good to go. So, does that work every single time? No. I have found in my personal experience, that works about 90% of the time. So a client calls and they ask a question. They're asking for legal advice, but they don't actually need legal advice. There's a difference between what people ask for and what people actually want or need. And so by having good systems in place, we were able to provide what she wanted and needed without giving her what she asked for. And in this case, we were able to give her legal information without giving her legal advice. It was very clear. This is not from an attorney. We're not telling you what to do. We're just telling you what your decree says. And then we ask very simply, is that enough for you? Did you get enough information, or do you still need legal advice from our attorney? In this case, she said yes. About 9 times out of 10, our clients do say yes, that's enough information. Our team didn't have to do anything. We used to do that where our team would pull up the decree and find it themselves and just copy and paste the decree for them, right? This is just faster. We've been able to use AI to improve that. The quality's better and it's faster. But we had a system for this before we had AI. And then we confirmed you need it. If they had needed legal advice at that point, we would have then scheduled an opportunity for the attorney to answer that. A simple question like that, we would have scheduled for the attorney to just respond through the portal. A complex question, we would have scheduled a phone call, right? But that's just an example that I wanted to use of how you can create a system to answer someone's question that's a better answer, right? Would your client prefer to get an answer right now or in 2 days when the attorney has time to call him back? The answer is right now, right? Was the answer sufficient for what they needed? In this situation, the answer is yes. So they were able to get really good information, honestly better than what the attorney remembers, right? Our attorneys have an average of 50 to 70 cases at any given time, so they don't remember your decree. Okay, it takes them a while to look it up. So it's a better answer and it's faster by giving them a system. So that's the idea here, right? So when it comes to email, issue number 1 is how to do this with email. You need to create a system and have someone on your team that is sorting the email for you, okay? I have an email SOP that we give away for free. It's one of the lead magnets that we use, right? So as I was prepping for this, I went and found it and have a link for it. So for those who are interested, I'm gonna give you a chance to get that for free here at the end of this call. And that's where I would start. That's what my client ended up deciding, my mastermind client ended up deciding to do, right? I finally convinced him, I was like, let's just try the email SOP, okay? And even though he was doing about 4 hours a day, it took him 2 weeks. We got the SOP in place. He had a virtual assistant that was helping him sort this stuff. And we can talk about the ethics of virtual assistants another day if people have a problem with that. But within 2 weeks, he went from 4 hours a day to, I want you to guess. I want you to guess, how many hours a day do you think he went to? He was doing 4 hours a day on his email. How many hours do you think he is doing now? Drop it in the chat. I want to hear what you guys think. Good. Yep. It was 30 minutes a day. He averaged less than 3 hours for the week. So he went from about 14 hours a week, because he was working more than 5 days a week, to about 3 hours a week. So huge decrease in how much time he spent on his email. The cool thing is he had a lot of complaints about his response rate. Almost all of those went away. And with that extra time, he was able to help his current team a lot more. And so a lot of his current team's frustrations that they were having with working there also went away. So that was a secondary benefit by using his time that he got back well. His VA, he found for $6 an hour, and they only worked 20 hours a week. So he was spending $120 a week to get back 9+ hours a week of his time. Would you spend $100 to get back 9 hours? The answer better be yes, right? Because I'm guessing you bill $300-400 an hour, so he got what, almost $3,000 a week back for $100. That's the power of having an email system. So that would be the first thing. If you're trying to think of what systems to create in your business, that's what I would say. The first one I recommend for everybody is going to be the email SOP. Okay. The next one is, we need to create some systems for you on how to empower your team so that they can make good decisions, but they don't have too much power that they make too many decisions and cause a problem, right? And so, that's why I used the example I did at the beginning of this question that we had in our office. And so, I'll full disclosure, with that question specifically, we have a new AI system that we're using. And so they had to run it through the system, and then they confirmed it with me before we sent it to the client. So this is something new and in the works. We're constantly improving our own systems. And that's what we had to, but that's what I'm talking about, right? Is my team knew what to do, and they knew when not to push send, okay? They wanted to test these things first. And so we need to create the same thing for you. Who here has read Buy Back Your Time? I would love to know if anybody here has read Buy Back Your Time and have any principles on how to do that. So as you're answering that, there's a couple of things in Buy Back Your Time that is probably my favorite principles from Dan's book. If you don't have a copy of Buy Back Your Time, let me know. I have a bunch of them. I bought a bunch of copies of his book to have him present at one of our masterminds. I still have a bunch left over. So if you want a copy, I'll send it to you. But in there, he has a couple of kind of time hacks. And I want to make sure I don't butcher them. So I'm going to pull up his book right here, just so we can confirm that I'm not butchering any of these things, okay? And the only 4 time hacks you need is on page 149. For those who have the book, you can go to 149 and see all of these in more detail. So, the 4 time hacks he has, I'll tell you what they are and then we'll talk a little bit about them. The first one is what he calls the $50 magic pill. The second one is sync meetings with repeat agenda. The third one is the definition of done. And the fourth one is the 1-through-1 rule. So I'm not going to talk about the meetings and the agendas or the definition of done today. Those are great systems in how we ensure people are doing things the right way. That's a whole another presentation, okay? What I want to talk though specifically about today is that $50 magic pill. So all this is your team needs to have a dollar amount in which if it costs less than that amount to solve a problem, they have to solve it without asking you first. Period, right? And so you can also have a different dollar amount for different employees, right? So like my non-attorney, non-paralegal team, just my normal legal supports team, right? They have a $100 magic pill. So anything that costs me less than $100 to fix, they have to fix it without asking me. They document these things and we review them at later meetings, and we may update our SOPs and trainings and stuff on what to do with things about that in the future, but they're not allowed to ask me up front. They just have to make the decision. This is super important though. Like you need to empower your team to act while having boundaries so that they don't act too much, right? For my paralegals, I've got a case manager that makes all these decisions at the paralegal level. She's been working with me for a lot of years, so she's at $500. Normally, a lot of my clients, they'll do $50 for their support staff, like $100 or $200 for their paralegals, and then they'll do like $1,000 for their attorneys. My team's been with me for a long time, so I'm at $100 for my support staff, $500 for my case manager. She's literally been here longer than anybody else, and she's been in the industry for a really long time, so I trust her more than most people do. And for my legal team, it's still $1,000. My attorneys, it's still $1,000. So that's the first one. That in and of itself is going to take tons of stuff away, right? And then the next one is the 1-3-1 rule. So this is if your team wants to ask you a question, what do they need to do before they're allowed to do so? So and it's kind of funny, you're like, Chris, we're supposed to be talking about client communication. Why in the world are you talking to me about your team making decisions? Well, I want you to ask, what's the number one interruption that your team gives you? And you can answer this. If it's not client communication, I want to know. But for me and my team, the number one interruption we were getting was someone on the phone. My team didn't know how to handle it, but the person's on the phone, right? And so they go ask somebody. They come ask me, or they came ask my case manager. They were mostly asking my case manager these questions, but my case manager was getting interrupted 10 to 20 times a day answering the other support team's questions. Well, I hired my support team to answer the phone, right? That's their job, and that's what they get paid to do. And then I have my case manager doing case management stuff, right? And she gets paid a lot more than my support team does because she does a lot more. The value of the things she does is worth a lot more. So every time they interrupted her, she then was doing $15 an hour tasks at $35 an hour, right? And she was getting interrupted. So it was taking her 20 minutes to switch back into her thing. So it was costing me significant amounts of value every time they interrupted her. So by creating these rules, it fixed the number one issue we had in this. So when someone asks you a question, they have to do what's called the 1-3-1 rule. I'm not going to quiz you and ask you if you know what it is. I'm just going to tell you what it is. But if you know, that's awesome. I've added to this a little bit. So how Dan Martell says this is they have to clearly define their question. They have to give you 3 possible solutions, and they have to tell you which of those 3 possible solutions is the best one. I do it a little differently. If they ask a question, the first thing I do is ask, what does the playbook say? Right? Because they darn well better not be asking me a question that I've already created an SOP for. So, Chastity, do you have SOPs for your case manager? Absolutely, yeah. Because it's a little different than like a step-by-step thing. It's more of a training with a checklist. I found that to be more effective and more empowering. But yes, we do. And that's why the very first question I always ask is, what does the playbook say? Should they clearly define their question before they come and ask that? Yes, right? Technically, they should clearly define their question and then see if it's in the playbook. But for me personally, I have trained them. I will not answer their question until they can prove to me that they have tried to find it in the playbook first. Because I don't want to repeat myself, right? So what does the playbook say? Then, once they can confirm that they've checked the playbook and they don't know the answer, then I ask them for their 1-3-1. Well, what's your clearly defined question? They need to be able to ask their question in one straightforward sentence. This seems silly. Like, I was like, why do we do this? And it was after I learned the 1-3-1 rule that I started paying attention. That a lot of people, they come and they talk to you because they're confused. They don't know what their answer is yet, their question is yet. So they come and they're like, hey, I've got this weird question I wanted to bounce off of you. And then they tell you the facts. And then they tell you why they're confused. And then about 5 to 10 minutes into it, they're like, so I guess my question is, and they come up with their question, right? I want them to do that whole 10-minute analysis before they come into my room, right? So what's your clearly defined? So they come in, and my team will do this now, right? They come in, they're like, hey, I've already checked the manual, and I need to know, and then they say one sentence, right? They do not want to have me go, what's your 131, right? And so they've been trained here, right? So they clearly define it. Then they have to come up with 3 solutions that they think it is, right? A lot of team members, they don't want to think for themselves. So there's a book, and it's like something about your monkeys or whatever, right? And the whole, I don't know what the title of the book even is, but the whole premise of the book is don't take on your staff's monkeys, right? So if they come and try to give you a monkey, the whole goal is for you to give it back to them, right? And the monkeys being problems, right? So why I make them come up with 3, and 3 is a magic number here. I've tried 2, I've tried 4. There's a reason Dan said 3. I don't know if he did science on this before he announced it, but 3 does seem to be the magic number. I want them to work their brain. Before they're allowed to ask me a question, they need to really be trying to problem solve themselves. Problem solving is a skill that must be practiced in order to be improved. And so if you want your team to stop asking you stupid questions, they have to be good problem solvers. And the only way they're going to be good problem solvers is if they practice this skill and become good problem solvers, right? So clearly defined question, 3 possible solutions. And I usually tell them I want one solution to be just stupid ridiculous, right? Like out of this world, we would never do that. It's too good to be true, right? Like someone asked if I could help them with we were creating an offer for my coaching business, and we had it was a $500 offer, right? And option number 1 was, why don't you fly out there and create their SOP for them, right? Definitely worth over. I bet every single person here would happily pay $500 for me to fly to them and spend a day solving their problems for them, right? I'm not willing to do that, but I don't care if it's stupid and ridiculous. I just want that muscle to start working on what's a really good possible solution to this problem. So one's crazy ridiculous, and the other 2 are then more realistic, because I want them practicing. And then they have to tell me which of the 3 they think is the best solution, because again, I want them practicing their problem solving. So what this really ends up doing is most of their questions will go away. Once they've spent the 10 minutes to figure out what their question is, understanding your question is half the problem. There's a lot of quotes out there that says once you've defined your question, you're halfway done with the solution. And they've thought about the solutions, and they thought about which one's best. If it costs less than their dollar amount to do that thing, they're not allowed to ask me. They've already come up with a solution. So they just go take action. It gets rid of about 80% of the questions. For the 20% of the questions they come to me, it's almost always, hey, I've checked the manual and I need to know A, B, and C, but realistically, I think that the best thing to do is this. It just costs $1,000, so I wanted to make sure you're okay with it before I pull the trigger. Those questions end up being really quick. What I'll add to this, and it's why the sync meetings and repeat agendas and definition of done stuff, why Dan Martell has added that to this section is your team then needs to, as part of this 131 analysis, I think of it as a 5-step process instead of a 3-step process. Step 1 is it in the manual? Then you do the 131, that's 3 steps. Step 5, before they're allowed to ask a question, they have to ask themselves, is this an emergency? And if it's not an emergency, then they're only allowed to ask the question during their meetings, right? And you have to have pre-scheduled meetings for them to ask questions so that they don't interrupt you now. And so that's how you get rid of most of the interruptions. And that's where you're going to get most of your time back. So when it comes to how do we communicate better with our clients, that's the way, right? 1, you create a system on how to communicate with them. Specifically, you're going to go into your email and you're going to do an email inbox there, email inbox SOP, right? Then you're going to create a system for your team on how to ask questions now that you have a system that puts most of the work on your team and AI, if you have it, to answer questions, you then create a system on if they can't do it, how they ask you, right? As a little aside, what I've done here in my team specifically, so if someone asks they need legal advice, but it's not an emergency. My team's gonna go through and listen to them and talk to them, whether it's on the phone or in the client portal, right? They're gonna go through their job, instead of doing 131 and stuff, right, is they're smart enough, I can't give legal advice. So they just go through and they then summarize everything that's been said into a concise question, and they trigger for our attorneys to look at it. So if someone puts a huge long text in an email or a client portal, all of our communication goes through our client portal. So you'll see I talk about the portal a lot. If you don't use a portal and you use email instead, same principles apply. But I'm sure probably this week you've received an email from a client that is just a big block of text, right? I have one client that literally doesn't even use punctuation. It's just words, and it's like 4 paragraphs of words and just one big block of text with no punctuation. My brain can't handle those. That's again why we use ChatGPT, and I plug that in there and I just say, hey, my client has sent me this email. What are their specific questions? Give me a bullet point list of their specific questions, right? But your team's job is when a message comes in, they deal with it if they can. They use any sort of resources you've given them, any systems you've created to solve it. If they can't, if it requires legal advice, then their job is to give you a quick summary of the facts and specific questions in a bullet point or numbered list. And then they task you to answer it, right? So for our team specifically, we have like an hour each day that our attorneys respond to messages. So they don't go through all of the messages. What happens is when they get to that hour, there's then a list presented that says John Doe has the following questions. Jane Smith has the following questions. And then they just go to John Doe's case, they take those questions, they literally copy it into the portal, and they go, so question 1, and they just answer it under question 1, question 2, and then they hit send, right? So it allows for our attorneys to be incredibly efficient. It may have been a 40-minute phone call with the client that turns into a 2-sentence summary with 3 specific questions. And our team's been trained to say like, okay, so your question is this. Do you have any other questions? Okay, so you have these 3 questions. Are there any other questions? No? Great. Well, I have now tasked Paul, our senior attorney, to answer this. Looks like he's going to be able to get to this about 4 p.m. this afternoon. And that's on his calendar at 4 p.m. So that's how we do it. And that's what allows us to kind of get to my final point, which is don't let small things overwhelm you. And we've got to allow sometimes some small bad things to happen to be able to achieve incredible good things. And so with all of this being said, as you're creating these systems, you have to kind of ask yourself, the small bad things that I'm talking about in this situation is speed to respond by the attorneys. You could have your attorneys answer every single phone call and answer every single email when they came in. That is possible, but they wouldn't get anything else done, right? And so when you're creating this system, you're gonna have to batch responses. And we have found that 1 hour a day for our attorneys is more than enough. Almost all of the attorneys at my office are done within about 15 to 30 minutes at the end of the day with their email. So they don't check their own emails. They don't even sort their own emails. They have one spot that they go. It's actually in the calendar event. So that at 4 p.m. when they look at their calendar and see that it's time to respond to emails, they click on that event and there are the people's names and questions. And they take that and they go to the case and answer the questions right there. And that's the only emailing communication stuff that they have to do. Everything else has been handled by our team. And I did it at 4 p.m. on purpose, because who wants to go home? I know I do. By the end of the day, I want to go home, right? And so I didn't want them spending too long in their email. They just go in, they answer the questions, as soon as they're done, they get to leave. Most of the time, they'll then do a quick review and make sure they know what they're going to do the next day, and then they get out of here. They usually can leave, before 5. But it's okay to let the fact that they're not going to get a response. Sometimes, if they're in a mediation or a trial or something, we'll just tell them, hey, we've got your 3 questions. Paul's in mediation for the next 2 days. So the earliest he's going to be able to respond is Friday. But we do have some time blocked out on Friday for him to respond to these. I'm putting you there. I often will even say, like, it looks like you're 3rd on the list. So you're pretty high up the list. You should get that answer pretty quickly once he gets started. As long as you manage that expectation, I've yet to have a client upset. Because you have your team sorting through this so that when it is an emergency, right? So it was a couple of years ago now, but I had a client call our office and say, I'm so sorry to call, because they know they're not supposed to call, they're supposed to use the portal. But I have the police at my door. They're trying to take my kids. What should I do? So I was in the middle of a mediation. I was the mediator. And my team came to me and said, hey, here's the situation. Police at his door trying to take his kids. What should he do, right? And I told the parties, I'm like, I'm so sorry, but I do have to take this call. And I got up, walked over, told the police, and so said, put the police on the phone. The police wouldn't talk to me. And so I said, put it on speakerphone. Right? And he's like, okay, they can hear you. And I said, officers, do you have a warrant? And if not, you need to get off his property right now. He will not be turning over his kids until he has a warrant. And if you have any questions, the county attorney can call me. And they left. Sure enough, it was actually the dad's buddies that were kind of extending their power more than they should have, right? But we were able to make sure their kids were taken away, or not taken away, taken care of. So because you have these systems in place, if there's an emergency, take care of it, right? I mean, interrupt your mediation, interrupt your hearing, whatever you have to do, take care of it. Like, often the biggest objection I get when I'm teaching this is, well, what if ... Obviously, take care of your clients. Nothing I'm teaching today should be construed that we don't take care of our clients. In fact, is there anything I said today that you're like, oh, that's not a better way to take care of my clients than what I'm doing now? I'm dead serious. Even those who answer the client's calls on the cell phone. Having a system that gives them the information they need ASAP, and then directs all the questions to the attorney that needs to be answered by the attorney at a reasonable time frame, emergencies right away, and non-emergencies at a scheduled time, is that not better than what you're doing now? Because if they have your cell phone and they call your cell phone and you're in court, what happens? You don't answer it. You darn well better not answer your cell phone in front of a judge. I guarantee you're spending a night in jail if you answer your cell phone in a judge's court, right? So now your client goes unanswered. Well, when do you get back to him? Hopefully when your hearing's over. But what if you get 4 calls during your hearing? And then when your hearing's over, your staff's already asking you questions. And so you call them on the way home and answer their questions. And then when you get back to the office, you have a meeting. And then you forget that you got 4 calls during your hearing and you never call them back. Because I'll tell you, I don't know a single attorney whose clients have their cell phone number that don't frequently forget to call people back. So, can your clients call your cell phone in case of an emergency? Sure. If you want to do that, I'm not saying no. But have a good system in place so that they give it their stuff. So I don't see anybody here saying that what we've proposed today is not a better system than what they're currently doing. So I'm going to give people one more chance. Is there anything that you're currently doing that's better than what we just talked about today? Having a clear system where your clients get answers as quickly as possible, information, not advice, as quickly as possible. When they need advice, it's scheduled on an attorney's calendar to get responded to timely. And again, timely is based on that thing. Anybody have something better than that? Okay, so now my question is, how do you make sure you do that with your business? And that's where I'm most excited to talk about this, okay? So some of you may have heard, we are doing a little giveaway right now. So what I like to do these 12-week challenges, right? Where the whole purpose of the 12-week challenge is to get people to $10,000 a week in weekly gross revenue, right? So this is gross, not take home. Weekly gross revenue, $10,000 a week. We have a checklist that we use, and so far we have a 100% success rate. If you use the checklist, you will be making $10,000 a week or more within 12 weeks. Most people do it within about 6 to 9 if they do everything on the checklist. Truth be told, if you do 90% of what's on the checklist, you'll hit it in about 12 weeks. So that's why I have it set up that way, as I know no one's perfect, and so if I set it up over 12 weeks and you do most of it, you're still gonna hit your goal, right? We're giving that away for free right now. In fact, we have 3 chances to give it for free. So one is we've got a link, and I'll send you the link for anybody who wants it. Just let me know, and I'm going to send you the link. You just apply. You just submit your name, and if you win, you win. But to incentivize this, if you refer somebody, and the last question on the submission is your name and your contact information, right? And the last one is who referred you. So even if you heard it from here, like put Chastity names or Amy's name, put someone's name on there saying that they referred you, right? Because if you win and you had someone refer you, they win as well. So if Chastity wins and she says that Amy referred her, both Chastity and Amy will win the free 12-week challenge. So we usually charge 10 grand for this. No secrets here, okay, right? My goal when I created this program was you make $10,000 a week, and you give me 1 week's of income to then make 10,000 a week for the rest of your life, right? When I was selling this, it was money back guarantee. So you either made $10,000 a week, and therefore it was worth giving me $10,000, or you didn't make $10,000 a week, and I gave you your money back, and it cost you nothing. So my goal has always been to give you 100% ROI or more every single week for the rest of your life when I do these programs. But right now, I'm literally just going to give you the program for free if you win, okay? So you get one chance to win by submitting your own name, and another chance to win for every single person you refer, as long as they write your name there. Then if they win, you win as well, right? So Amy, you could refer 20 people and you would have 21 chances to win, right? The third way to win it is a secret. So you have to be, once everyone's applied and we have announced the winners, everybody who didn't win will have one more way to win. Gonna give you a little pull the curtain back here. It's gonna be by doing some work, right? You do the work and I'll give it to you for free, is the short answer. I'll show you how to do that after we've announced the just straight up winners, okay? So you have 3 chances to win this $10,000 program for free and to incentivize you to sign up. If that's not enough, I don't know why you wouldn't put your name down for a chance to get a $10,000 course, but to incentivize you, anybody who signs up today, I made a list of it, so let me pull this list up to say what we're gonna give to you. So normally, if you show up to these things, I'm like, hey, I'll give you this free thing, right? Just let me know. We're gonna do it a little differently this time. In order to get, I got 4 things I'm gonna give you for free just by signing up for a chance to win the $10,000 thing, right? So I'll give you my email SOP. So I'm gonna give you the exact same SOP I gave my mastermind client that took him from 4 hours a day to half an hour a day in emails. I'm gonna give you that SOP. I've got a weekly update system. So I'm gonna show you how, one of the things we didn't talk about specifically here is how we preemptively answer our clients' questions. Since I know what people are gonna ask beforehand, because the same people ask the same questions over and over again, we now have a system where we, about once a week, preemptively answer our clients' questions. I'm gonna give you a system on how to create that for yourself. So I'll give you my email SOP, I'm gonna give you my weekly update system, and then I have a buy back your time quick start pack. So it's just how to implement those things that we talked about, the magic pill and the 1-3-1 rule. I'm gonna show you how to implement that. One of the things we didn't talk about today is if someone gets through that 1-3-1 and asks me the question, then I instantly create the SOP right there. If I'm ever gonna answer someone's question, I'm only gonna answer it one time. And so, Chastity, when you ask, do you have SOPs for your case manager? The answer is yes. They've come from people asking questions. So anytime someone asks a question that we can't answer in the playbook, I open it up, I create the SOP right there. I've got a very specific way of doing that by using some videos and those types of things. I record myself answering it, then my team creates the SOP, and then we review it together, finalize it, and put it in the playbook. So that's part of that Buy Back Your Time Quick Start program, or Quick Start Pack, so I'm gonna give that to you as well. And then I've also got a time and energy audit workbook. So as part of this, I asked you a lot of questions like, do you know how much time you spent on email? Do you know how much time you lost by going back and forth, right? And people gave me good ranges, and honestly, I was impressed with some of the answers we had. But the truth is most people don't know. And so I've got a time and energy audit that you can do to figure out exactly how much time you're spending on certain things. And part of that audit is you then get to figure out what those tasks are worth. So 1, you're gonna identify a lot of your inefficiencies that you can just get rid of, right? 2, you're gonna identify some of the things you're doing that are not worth very much, right? Like if you are the one sorting your email, then you are effectively earning $6 an hour by not paying a VA to do it for $6 an hour, right? I'm guessing your time's worth more than $6 an hour. So once we identify some of these low value tasks, you can delegate those first to get some more time back. So time and money was not the issue today, but it kind of fits with everything else we're doing. So I'm gonna give you that as well. So if you sign up for the $10,000, a chance to win the $10,000 12-week challenge, I will send you the email SOP, the weekly update system, the Buy Back Your Time Quick Start Pack, and the time and energy audit workbook for free. So you'll just get those. And obviously, if you win, great, you'll be a part of the 12-week challenge, which starts at the end of this month. And if you don't win, I'll give you a chance to still get it for free. You're gonna have to do some work to get it for free if you're not the original winner, but I'll still give it to free for everybody who gives me their email address. So any questions on that? Any questions on client communication or the offer or what I can do for you guys? What can I do to make sure that this works for you? I'm gonna give people about 1 minute to answer questions. If not, then we'll just wrap this up. for those who are watching this on the replay while those questions are coming in, this offer for those 4 things is available through the end of the week. So I actually have to manually go in and send those things to you. And so I am going to watch the submissions for the next 2 days, and then everybody who signs up for a chance to win our program, I will manually have to send those things. So I'm only doing that for 2 days, okay? So I'm not trying to do some scarcity thing where you gotta sign up now or you lose out on these things, but I have to because I ain't gonna do this forever, right? So me and my team, we will be monitoring that for the next 2 days. If you sign up before the end of the day on Friday, right? So Saturday morning, my team is gonna log in and check who's already signed up, and then we will make sure we send all those things. We'll probably send them to you on Monday, but we'll send you those things if you sign up by the end of Friday. So it doesn't look like we've got any questions coming in, which is awesome. So that's it, guys. My biggest takeaway that I want you to do is, 1, create a system for client communication. I promise you, your clients are going to be so much happier if you have a system. Even if you think that having your direct email and your direct cell phone is making them happy, I'm not saying you can't talk to them directly. I hope you do talk to them directly, but still put the system in place first, so that for all of those times that you're in hearings or drafting motions or mediating or just sleeping or whatever, your clients are getting answers to their questions as quickly as possible. And the most important ones are being sorted and sent to you as quickly as possible, so that you can really give people the best results. I know we didn't talk about that nearly enough, but by doing it this way, you notice my team, my attorneys often answer every single question that's presented to them by the end of the day. So that means almost every question that someone asks our office is answered within 8 hours. That's pretty dang good, right? But we're only able to do that because everything that can be answered by someone else is answered by someone else. So that the ones that require the attorney isn't so much time that the attorney can't do it every single day, right? So you really are creating a better product for your clients by having this system. And with better products means you can charge more, you can make more money, and you can do it in less time, right? There's a nice benefit to you on the back end, but never am I ever saying that you should just take advantage of your clients and charge more for the same thing, right? I want you to charge more for providing even more value, right? And the clients are appreciative for it. So that's how I would do that. How to do this, right? So if you're interested in a chance to win our $10,000 12-week challenge, I will send you the link. You just have to let me know in the comments. If you RSVP'd for this, we will send you a copy of the replay, and we'll send you a link for that chance to win there as well. So, and if you want those email SOP kit, the weekly update system, the Buy Back Your Time Quick Start Pack, and the Time and Energy Audit Workbook, you gotta sign up within the next 48 hours. So thanks, guys. If you need anything else, let me know. If not, this is Chris Guyman, the Time Freedom Lawyer, and we will see you in the next one.